Well, good evening everyone. Thanks very much for joining us for our series of readings this evening. It gives me great pleasure to say that we're now going to hear from David Mitchell, who will be treating the audience to 3 unpublished short stories featuring familiar characters, and each story stretches the experience of time in different ways. Professor Paul Harris will also be treating us to his work on slow time zones, gardens which express the philosophy and poetics of slow time. So to introduce tonight's readers then, award-winning author David Mitchell. Award-winning author David Mitchell is the author of 7 novels, 2 libretti for the operas Wake and Sunken Garden, and over 20 short stories. His work has been shortlisted twice for the Booker Prize and longlisted 4 times. His awards include the John Llewellyn Rhys, Geoffrey Faber Memorial and South Bank Show Literature Prizes. He has also previously been chosen as one of Granta's Best of Young British Novelists and named as one of the world's 100 most influential people by Time magazine. So,
my wife just laughs so much. I'm probably not going to say this, but it's really true. She says, "You're not even one of the most 5 influential people in the house." It's me, the kids, the washing machine.
Okay, so Paul Harris is Professor of English at Loyola Marymount University, where he teaches interdisciplinary courses on themes such as wonder, chaos, time, and nothing. His scholarly interests include the interdisciplinary study of time, literary theory, constraint-based writing, and contemporary literature. He's the co-editor of Substance, and he edited a special issue of the journal dedicated to David Mitchell's fiction. His current projects include Slow LMU, an initiative at his university for which he's installed slow time zones in collaboration with artist Richard Turner, and a collaboration on slowness installations at Arizona State University. So, without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to David Mitchell and Paul Harris.
This story is called The Garden. That shimmering gong of a sun has less than a minute to go before it sinks out of sight. Snowdrops under the holly, virgins in old tails, primroses, lipstick red and butter-naveled, bantering, cheerful tarts. Crocuses unsheathing around the silver birches, satin white, Persian purple, oil paint yellow. When I planted these birches, they were broomstick height. And now look at them. They tap our bedroom window on stormy nights. Hyacinths on what I fondly call my rockery. Boy blue, girl pink. Through the kitchen double doors I watch you eating supper. Carrot and coriander soup, and leafing through Country Living magazine. My, how well you look. White hair endows you with the demeanour of a friendly witch. I'm about to knock on the glass, but your laptop screen glows into life, and suddenly here's our son's hazy face, bringing you news from across the ocean. What a world! What a world! He's just had scrambled eggs and tomatoes for breakfast, he says. His course is just awesome. And what's this? Apparently a young lady has invited him to dinner at her parents' house. Should he take flowers for the mother, bottle of whiskey for the father? He's asking you, or could this seem a little premature? What a world! I leave the pair of you to it and cross the patio. The sun has gone. Well, the azaleas are magenta, though the January frosts knock them back. But the quince trees are doing well. Tough customers' quinces. Their petals, pillar box red, look tweezered and plucked from the thorny twigs. Daffodils, 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 gormless and happy, clustering thicker every spring. Remember how our daughter helped to plant the bulbs? She was 2 years old and insisted on saying good night to every nunion as she pushed it into its earthy bed. Good night. The robin sits on the handle of my old spade, still stuck in the veggie patch where you left it earlier, when you heard the phone go and dashed inside. It was our daughter asking if she could leave Rose and Leo with you on Friday afternoon so she could meet a new client. From his perch, the robin watches for worms and watches a black cat under the apple trees, but this old gardener walking by doesn't bother him. The robin's breast was splashed red when he pulled out a thorn from Jesus' forehead. Did I tell you that? Or did you tell me? That sweltering day in a long-ago apartment in another country. The horny old rhubarb needs good cutting back before it takes over the whole patch. Give rhubarb an inch, it'll take a mile. Camellias over the lawn, grown big and bushy. Double cream in the dusk, jelly red, crayon pink, those roses without scent, but without thorns too. I brush off a few of the mankier blooms, let them lie where they fall. The church bell rings across the fields, bonfire smoke, faint like bacon. Wild honeysuckle grows thick around the trellis. Inside the box hedge circle waits the magnolia, her branches snaking off into the gloom, an Indian goddess gone haywire. Ivory flowers, arachnid petals. Oh, they won't stand a chance, said our neighbour across the way. Not a magnolia, you're too exposed here. Wind's too salty. But our other neighbour down the lane urged me to give it a go. Well, why not? The man or woman who can guarantee that such and such a plant is bound to fail or thrive in such and such a plot of earth is not yet born. Time proved our neighbour down the lane right, though the magnolia has a secret. My own ashes were dug in well around its roots. You honoured my last request this time, last year. The moon appears above the farmhouse on the hill, an unearthed silver shilling. When did the robin fly off? Back in the house, you're drawing the curtains. A lamp comes on. Good night.
A perturbation in the deep stream. The Petroverse of Pierre Jardin is a xeriscape in the California Heights neighborhood of Long Beach, California, where many residents have taken advantage of a city program that subsidizes the conversion of grass lawns into drought-tolerant landscapes. The garden's creation in 2009 is attributed to the aptly named Pierre Jardin. Jardin coined the neologism Petroverse to mean both a world composed of rocks, a rock garden, or words composed of rocks, verse written with stone. The Petroverse's tagline, a rock garden where nothing is written in stone, is literally and figuratively fitting. As a world composed of rocks, the Petroverse is a garden featuring assembled arrays of rocks, stones balanced on bases, and naturally standing stone stacks. Stones display and integrate other collected materials, including tree stumps, different kinds of shells, and various beachcombed treasures. Larger installations evoke the places where rocks were collected, such as this tidal shelf, which combines Palos Verdes shore stones with coral trees and a dolphin skull. In this work, called Caution, Rock Climbers and Tree, rocks were nestled in the forked branches of a large pine tree 7 years ago. Since then, they have sunk down as the wood grows up. The rocks can no longer be removed, and one is being cracked by the tree's growth. This experiment comprises a dialogue between non-human durations, dendrochronological growth, and geophysical erosion. Petroverse, as words composed of rocks, refers to petric texts placed in a landscape-oriented page place for perusal by a perambulatory public. Sometimes petroverses pose as Paleolithic text messages, sent using eco-friendly tools dating back to the Stone Age. Other texts resemble tweets of Pierre Jardin describing what he is doing at a given moment. Or is it a proclamation? I'm rock king now. In this multimedia composition by artist Richard Turner, several lines of petroverse text are assembled on a 2-meter tall vinyl banner that presents them as a teetering stone stack, expressing the deliberate destabilizing of language that Jardin practices and the incomplete nature of the petroverse project. The range of rhetorical registers reflects the diverse audience the texts are addressing, including school children, teens, hipsters, and artists. The bedrock composition laid in the nascent petroverse was a Cretan labyrinth. As a petroglyph found on ancient stones around the world, a kind of proto-writing, this symbol set the cornerstone for a petric poetics. Jardin made the labyrinth with white pebbles he collected on a beach in Crete after visiting Knossos, the archaeological site of King Minos's mythical palace associated with Theseus and the Minotaur. Jardin set the labyrinth in a bed of blue aquarium gravel, evoking swirling motion in a pool, which he conceptualized as a kind of maelstrom, a world swirling and originating motion from which flowed a stream he named the River of Time. This aesthetically apposite action would prove to have unforeseen consequences. The petroverse is an outsider art environment, a whimsical world expressing a personal vision, improvisationally created on home ground and spare time, never finished, yet always complete. A sort of headstone announces the garden's name, with a rock in which a face vaguely reminiscent of Munch's The Scream can be made out, serving as a portrait of the artist. Large stone signs painted road sign yellow and mounted on car jacks at both sides of the garden demarcate the petroverse as a slow time zone. A manifestone broadcasts the garden's ethos in a light-hearted haiku. Stones are vital signs of the earth's living spirit, plus they're pretty cool. The garden has a dedicated blog simply called The Petroverse of Pierre Jardin. A rock face and speech balloon with a QR code labeled Read Me enables strollers to access the blog while at the site and post comments. An aperiodic newsletter called The Slow Times occasionally appears in a document box like those used by realtors selling homes. It was the Slow Times headline article shown here, Temporal Anomalies Detected, that first brought the petroverse public notoriety. The story reported speculations that the petroverse was literally a slow time zone, causing distinct physical effects, as if space-time somehow stretched along the garden's 44-foot stretch of sidewalk. Strange behaviors in observers, including consistent decreases in perambulatory velocity in adults, and contorted gesturing by children walking in slow motion, suggested that the petroverse was generating some sort of gravitational field. Physicists and psychologists from the International Society for the Study of Time theorized that aesthetically pleasing stone configurations can create quantum cerebral sinkholes that attract and bind bodies, eyes, and brains, causing people to stop and stare. Further noticing that temporal vortices may form when consciousness gets caught in circular reasoning, psychologists suggested that petroverse text messages such as "nothing is nothing" were causing a condition known as paradox vortex of the cerebral cortex in passers-by. For Pierre Jardin, the article proved to be a real coup d'éclat, as it led to his first public work, commissioned by a philosopher at Loyola Mount Mary University named Brad Stone. Stone and a colleague were directing a semester-long forum called The Values of Time and launching a Slow LMU initiative that invited the campus to dedicate several hours a week to conducting slow time exercises, inspired by the spiritual exercises of Loyola. Professor Stone commissioned Jardin to design a slow time zone on the LMU campus where faculty and students could engage in slow time exercises. Thrilled as he was to get this prestigious invitation, Pierre Jardin also suffered palpitations of trepidation for his reputation. What if the Petroverse wasn't really a slow time zone? What if the temporal anomalies had a simple explanation or unthinkably turned out to be a hoax? How could he replicate the Petroverse results, and what defines some activity as a slow time exercise? He was rescued from the paralysis of resignation by the arrival of a strange missive on parchment paper under the letterhead of the Horological Society, Greenwich, founded 1690.
Dear esteemed Monsieur Jardin, the Society trusts this missive finds both yourself and Luna, your feline companion, in salubrious fettle. I write to you, however, on a matter sombre and momentous. To wit, our Greenwich Academy has observed a serious perturbation amid the deep stream, a perturbation, moreover, that psychosoteric inquirers have followed to your illustrious gardens, Cretan labyrinth, wherein tectonic currents, whipped into being by rock cluster harmonies, generate an intense temporal voltage. For reasons as yet unknown, Cretan stone labyrinths accumulate a maximum charge, in essence becoming a slow time machine whose emitted fluxions in the flow of geologic time prompt, ultimately, a catastrophe. The above-mentioned perturbation in the deep stream, or, as I explained it to our night soil manoeuvre this very morning, a disturbance in the force of time. The Cretan labyrinth, as you are doubtless aware, is a species of metalife that has propagated itself across the globe over time immemorial, predating the fall of Nineveh, the rise of Ur, and the levelling of Zhaoji. The labyrinth is disseminated by a simple seed. This embryonic motif, found on pottery shards within the Society's collection, attracts an unsuspecting host and compels the agent, as iron filings are compelled by lodestone, to draw its pattern by means of a precise, plotted, and varying process. Might the sensual pleasure experienced be derived from a resonance betwixt the left to right motions and the body's bilateral symmetry? Might these oscillations explain in no small part the sense of well-being that accompanies the act of walking a labyrinth? Whatever the truth of these matters, upon completion of the Cretan pattern, a subliminal activation transpires within seconds. Its lines or walls recede to a passive background, while the voids or passageways commence to resonate. Soon the host is consumed by the labyrinth's indomitable sway, as a shrew by a cobra of the banyan tree. Henceforth the host will be suasions to reproduce the pattern on ever larger scales, in ever more durable materials, until a man or woman enters the mature labyrinth, whereby the Cretan's incarnation, with its slave and its creator, is manifest. The path, known to classicists as Ariadne's thread, possesses psychosoteric potential, rooted not in natural philosophy but numerology. Number its concentric circuits from mouth to goal. The path through the labyrinth produces the sequence 0, 3, 2, 1, 4, 7, 6, 5, 8. By balancing and alternating numbers, even and odd numbers, the path switches at every turn. Centripetal and centrifugal motions engender vortical swirling in moving from outside entry point through middle level to the centre. The path tantalises walkers by going 3 levels away from the centre. Twice between 0 and 4, you will notice we traverse levels. And between 4 and 8, we traverse levels 7, 6, 5. The numbers reveal why circuits never extinguish themselves by overlapping, for when two segments intersect, one is contained inside the other. Thus, in the sequence, 3, 2 is inside 1, 4, and 7, 6 is inside 5, 8. These sets of pairs sustain their polar balance by virtue of their sums remaining the same, 5 and 13, respectively. Why? The Society anticipates your objection. Does the Cretan labyrinth perturb the deep stream? Because we conclude Ariadne's palindromic thread suspends time in a reversible course in which, to deploy a line by a nameless poet whose grasp on sanity is as dubious as his grasp of the English tongue, the future looks a lot like the past. Monsieur Jardin, we beseech you to respect the Cretan symbols' singular powers of slow time, and to deploy its circuitous energies only when the breath of the shaded way is on your neck and its blade at your throat. Your obedient servant, etc., Lakeem de Velt.
As you might imagine, Pierre Jardin was thrilled to receive this letter from such an illustrious horologist as Lakeem de Velt. And even though a lot of the letter was Greek to Pierre Jardin, especially the maths, it sprang him into action. He determined he would make a slow time zone with the beneficial effects of slow time without the toxic presence of Cretan pebbles. Depositing the Cretan pebbles in the ocean, he immediately went to Loyola Marymount to build a Cretan labyrinth on a suitable site. Jardin was immediately taken with The Bluff, a stretch of campus with panoramic views of the Pacific Ocean, Los Angeles Basin, and surrounding hills and mountains, including the Hollywood sign in the distance. He obtained permission to design a garden in an unused section of it and set to work. Determined to intensify the garden's slow time field at every turn, Jardin used aluminum bender board that curves space-time to make the lines, and used time-retardant decomposed granite to make the paths. Jardin engraved the benches around the labyrinth with gnarly turns of phrase designed to induce cerebral perplexity in slow time exercises. No time like the present. Suspend your time here wisely. And the call of the bluff lies within. The Garden of Slow Time was consecrated on December 9th, 2016, in a ceremony where Professor Stone read an epistle to the future. The garden was blessed by Father Randy Roach, a Jesuit priest and spiritual director, and Dwight Tribble, a Los Angeles jazz singer and prophet. Looking down on the ceremony from his rooftop perch, Pierre Jardin felt at peace. He had put to rest the perturbation in the deep stream, and was guardedly optimistic that walking the newly minted labyrinth would prove to be a trip to a dimension of ideas and things, substance and imagination, called the slow time zone.
Lots of bits of star. The owl-faced lady at Gran's asks, "And how's Leo?" Like Leo's someone else, not me, someone who's missing. Her breath smells of coffee and earwax, so my mouth says, "Coffee." She shrieks before laughing, so I clamp my hands over my ears, but her voice still gets in. "Coffee? Oh, Leo's a bit young for coffee. Gillian, you won't believe what your son just asked for. Gillian!" Mum's not paying attention because she's looking for her iPhone. It's in the car, and I want to tell her, but the owl-faced lady screeches, "Leo just asked for a cup of coffee!" Everything starts boiling over, and the only way to stop it is to bite my hand hard enough and groan loud enough to make the volcano nice and calm again. But if I do that, they'll all shout, "Leo, no biting," which makes it worse. So I run into Gran's back room. Gran's back room's quiet and cool and smoky from long ago, and the volcano's quiet. I see the choppy bicky tin from last time, 5 shelves up and 2 across. Up I climb and jump down like Spider-Man does whatever a spider can, and tip out the animals with "Made in Germany" on their tummies. I line them up by size, and they're the same size as last time. Nice and calm. The smallest one's an armadillo, and the biggest's an orca whale. Nice and calm. In Gran's kitchen, the owl lady's saying, "Oh, he's much happier off in his own little world, isn't he? You thought about teaching him sign language, Gillian? I was watching a documentary on BBC4. Shh! Look, 1,000 birds fly by. Wind swimmers, wing spinners. They're leaving without me, so I climb onto the windowsill and turn the handle and smell the garden. Alive, buzzing, and swarmy. I drop down onto the patio like Mum's iPhone dropped out of her zebra handbag in the car, and my mouth said zebra and Mum said, "Yes, Leo, I'm sure Gran's still got those plastic animals." And Rose, my sister, said, "Well remembered, Leo." Those flowers have fluttery petals. When I touch one, they all explode into butterfly bombs. I fall inside how beautiful they are and can't get out and don't want to. Oh, the never-ending story, the ever-ending story. Then somebody's laughing like Leo being tickled to death, and I can't stop or stand or breathe. And then it's gone, and I'm flat on my back on the grass, looking up at a thistle. A squint. It's as big as a planet. The trees are talking giant, but trees don't mind if you don't answer, so I watch the splotches of sky and triangles and lines like lots of bits of star. The wind musses the tree. A few little helicopters fly down and a word appears on scroll tiles. Sycamore, 15 points. Half a minute goes by, or half a day. At school I've got a schedule with laminated pictures on Velcro strips, but real life doesn't stick to Velcro as well as the pictures do. My t-shirt's a scaly skin, so I strip it off. The sycamore wanders away, and a much smaller tree ambles up. It's got lots of snaky arms and waxy leaves. It's nice to drum your fingers on. Nice and calm. "That's my magnolia," says the old man with stains on his old clothes. I echo it back. "That's my magnolia." Looking for clues. Don't find any. The waxy leaves are green, not magnolia. When the old man smiles, his eyes disappear. That's often a good sign. "You're called Leo, and this is a magnolia tree." Now I understand. If only everyone spoke like that. The old man's smoking a pipe, so I wonder if he's Sherlock Holmes. No, I'm only the gardener. He looks a bit like Mum. Well, so I should, Leo. I'm your granddad, your Mum's dad. Mum, her iPhone. It's still between the driving seat and the handbrake. My granddad says, oh, we'd better go and get it then, haven't we? And I explain it's hopeless, I'm useless, I'll forget by the time we get there because of my autism. But my granddad says, no, Leo, take my hand. Come on. We walk past the trampoline and it says, oi, Leo, climb up here and jump and jump and jump and jump and jump and jump and jump. Granddad reminds me, your mum's phone. We walk on the warm tarmac and it tells me, oh, feel me under your feet, Leo. Breathe in my fumes. But Grandad says, a bit sterner, Mum's phone. Round the front of Gran's house, we get to the car, but it won't open, and it laughs at me. I'm locked, loser. You'll forget why you're here in a moment, retard. So just boil over. You'll boil over. But Grandad murmurs in my ear, just try the door again, Leo. And this time it opens. In I dive, and I get Mum's iPhone. And 1, 2, 3, 4 faces are at Gran's kitchen window. Gran opens it up. The owl lady's saying, but how on earth did he get out? Mum's frowning. What are you up to, mister? Why are you in the car? And where's your t-shirt? The questions prod and poke, and I look round at my granddad, but he's not there. Then Rose says, hey Mum, look what he's holding. Mum's not frowning now. Oh, Leo, you star! You total star!
A perambulation in the deep stream. This is in 7 sections in honor of the 7 circuits of the labyrinth. And we'll try to do a live streaming. 1, line to line, body and mind. Feet tread a thread to the heart. As he approaches the labyrinth, Pierre Jardin reflects on its embodied and symbolic dimensions. Labyrinth walkers don't walk in a void. We walk in a physical space, but we also walk in an imaginative space. A cabinet full of junk, treasure both cultural and personally, like homegrown cosmologies, or favorite novels, or 80s pop songs. Jardin pauses at the aperture called the mouth, the only fork in this garden's path, where you choose whether or not to enter. I'm a mirror rim, am I, the mouth intones, as Jardin passes through the looking glass to a wonderland where weird stuff can happen and mythical monsters may live. Though Jardin would be more likely to meet Medusa than the Minotaur. 2, in the end, it turns out, the way out is the way in reverse, inside out. Walking Ariadne's thread is rather like reading a book full of twists and turns that ends in the middle, only to start up again, going over the same ground in the second part, but in the opposite order. The thread forms a script written in boustrophodon, bi-directional text that flips or reverses from left to right and right to left in alternating lines. The script guards Pierre Jardin like a Greek ox, boo, turning him, strophe, furrowing his brow as he plows his way through the labyrinth. I'm walking a line, he sings, I'm thinking about empty motion. Like, for example, the motion of an empty wine bottle rolling out ever so gently on a ship cabin floor, this way and that, this way and that, this way and that. Oh, sorry. Go away. Okay. 3, breath and blood cycle and sync, the pacing of concentric circuits, every turn a return to earth. The labyrinth walk is Pierre Jardin's immersive baptism in the deep stream of archaic time, echoing the labyrinth's possible origin as a chthonic journey through a winding cavern symbolizing the uterus of the Earth Mother. Ariadne's thread is Jardin's second umbilical cord, a nurturing tie to the lithosphere he loves. He looks out to sea and sees Catalina Island, where he loves to camp and collect volcanic rocks from the Miocene era. On the geologic time scale, the island is flying north at 31.5 miles per million years. In human terms, that's 2.5 inches a year, making it very difficult to detect with the naked eye. To mind the gap between human and geologic time scales, Pierre does the mental math. 2 inches equals 5.08 centimeters. A micron is 0.000001 centimeters. There are 525,600 minutes in a year. Ergo, the island is moving about a micron a minute. Given that human hair is 40 minutes thick, if I stand still for 40 minutes, I will see Catalina move a hair's breadth. Or, he realizes with a start, the San Andreas Fault might fracture at any moment, and if I'm lucky, this bluff I'm standing on will also be an island. 4. In search of wonder, I turn to stone. Absorbed in this reverie, Pierre Jardin feels he has satisfied the garden's injunction, suspend your time here wisely. Suspended between being petrified by the terrifying thought of tectonic instability, while also cocooned in the comfort of slow tectonic motion, Jardin reflected that nothing lasts, and yet nothing passes either, and nothing passes just because nothing lasts. In this aphoristic epiphany, Pierre Jardin discerns his true desire to cross over into the realm of lithic temporal suspension, to absorb himself in stones, until he would begin to absorb stone himself, as if he could let stone seep into him through a kind of dialectical animism, and the process would reach its apotheosis in his petrification. Stones are the bones of the earth, he thinks, and we humans are walking, talking minerals, the earth's upper crust in upright bipedal form, and I, Pierre, am a rock clone, a bone clock. Five, now I am it, time I won. Jardin's wandering mind is wondering, what does it mean to know time like the present? Could you actually ever know the elusive, spurious present? Mesmerized by his silhouette's appearance and disappearance, Pierre speculates that while the present cannot be apprehended, perhaps it can be adumbrated as a shadow. The labyrinth is a Salvador Dali sundial, he thinks, and I am the needle. What time has joined together, let no man put asunder. With the right horological device, we can know time like the present in our body. I will install an analemmatic sundial so that the shadow is cast by a person standing in the middle with a raised arm. The sundial will be called a time beam for being the time. And inscribed around the middle will be a question. What time is it? Answered with a question. You mean right now? 6, amazement for mindful meandering. A maze meant for a meandering mind. The Garden of Slow Time invites visitors to sit and reflect, to discern their path in life. The bench inscribed, the call of the bluff lies within, riffs on the LMU tradition to heed the call of the bluff, to serve the needs of the diverse communities of Los Angeles. Pierre Jardin ruminates on this phrase as he navigates the ins and outs of the labyrinth path. He soon finds himself lost in a cloud of semantic associations. To find your vocation, your inner truth, you have to call a bluff, one that lies within. From what meta viewpoint do you look inside yourself and call your own bluff? And lies within could refer to your inner bluff, the false self-image you hold but hide from the world and yourself. The Cretan labyrinth has entangled Pierre Jardin in the Cretan liar's paradox. Epimenides the Cretan says all Cretans are liars. If this is true, then he's lying when he says all Cretans are liars, because he just told the truth. It's an echo chamber, this place, Jardin mutters, wondering, what if my very existence is just a bluff that could be called at any time? 7. In time's mirror, we are ancestors of the future. A slab like a gravestone in the Garden of Slow Time bears a curious inscription. Loyola Marymount University, Fall 2016, Spring 17. The Values of Time, a capsule. To be opened Spring 2112, or any time thereafter. The time capsule buried there is an archive of the future, designed to make a tiny dent in the world's memory. It contains Professor Stone's Epistle to the Future, a signed collector's edition of Cloud Atlas, the author dedicated to the future, with a sealed envelope that says, open in the 22nd century. It also contains a contribution by Katie Patterson, one of her Dying Star letters. If the Slow Time capsule is opened as scheduled during LMU's bicentennial in 2112, it will serve as a trumpet call heralding the 2114 unveiling of the books in Patterson's future library. It will hopefully also show that in 2016, we tried to be good ancestors to future faculty and students. The capsule also contains a clue about the fate of Pierre Jardin. Judging by this book cover and curious calling card, it would appear that Jardin's last step through the aperture of the labyrinth in the Garden of Slow Time turned out to be the first step on a different path, the start of a new thread. But that's another story. For a voyage to begin, another one must end. Sort of.
My eye on you. Let me introduce myself. I'm that blurry figure, the one who hurries out of view across the margins of the mirror. I owe you an apology. I owe an explanation. I made you doubt your sanity. Here's the situation. My speed of times 1/12 of yours, or an hour for you holds 12 of mine. This is why I'm hard to see. Unless I stand stock still, I'll pass across your retina, unnoticed like a thief. Vision is a page of facts, redacted by belief. But I see you, as large as life and twice as ugly, as they say. Slow motion mannequins you are, locked in sync to your slow-mo day. Slow dogs, slow cats, slow butterflies, slow blackbirds sing slow notes, slow rugby games, slow motorways, slow fires expel slow smoke, slow trees sashay in slow storms, stripped slowly of slow tumbling leaves. Beautiful and blessed. this curse. I take 12 careful measured steps. You're on your very first. I overtake your car on foot. For me, it's just a game. Drop your wine glass on the floor. Go on. Right now, I'll watch it, frame by stop-start frame. If I choose, I'll catch it, strolling from across the room, or else admire its shattering, gaze on the wine's unravelling. You've been on the wiser if I reached into your bag right now and relieve you of your keys. Think on the possibilities, they're infinite or near as damn. Take what I want, go where I want, watch whom I want, then stroll inside the Kremlin just to spike the great dictator's coffee with polonium 210? Who would stop me? My conscience alone, my constant friend whose counsel is my radio. This world's already bruised by malice, murder, sorrow. Who's to say my meddling wouldn't make it worse tomorrow? None of us is born this way. Once upon a time, I was the same as you are now. Time, I believed, had but one speed, a speed I shared with all the earth. Until one 18th of December, a day of death and birth. You see, I'd vowed to kill a man. His name was Crispin Hershey. An ageing British novelist whose reputation dwindling then, his name means nothing now to most, but on that 18th of December he was my alpha and omega. I was a critic when I was young, of all the things I could have been. Films, TV, opera shows, you name it, all mine, to make or break, so I like to think. I'd awarded Hershey's book, his last one in more ways than one, a thorough drubbing, a hatchet job, a Jack the Ripper special. It caused a stir, it killed the book, provoked 10,000 chortles. Some months passed, I half forgot, but Crispin Hershey didn't. Our paths crossed next at a festival in Colombia where the writer shook my hand. He admired my bullshitlessness, my intellectual honesty, then planted drugs in my suitcase lining, tipped off the authorities. Or perhaps he planned for nothing more than a dark, vindictive prank, but he never confessed to what he'd done, not even after my arrest. Mouth firmly zipped, he watched me tried and sentenced, sent to jail. Bogota Penitentiary. My career was over. My health was shot, my savings spent on bribes. 4 years crawled by on blooded stumps, then transferred to a British jail and strolled in the park after seasons in hell until I was released. My old life was gone, as in utterly gone as last year's crop of flies. So I flew to New England to honour an oath I'd made to myself back in my cell, and there I stood, a week before Christmas, a campus office in snowy woods, pointing my gun dead ahead at the author of all my misfortunes. Oh, he knew the aroma of just desserts and didn't try to run or fight, deny his crime or talk me round. He asked me once to spare his life. My oath held firm. I'd received a diagnosis several days before. It was cancer, inoperable, 18 months to live at most. Thanks to my stay in Bogota, the early signs had gone unseen. So why should Hershey have the life he had robbed me of? A well-paid job, adoring students, a pension fund, wine tours of the Upper Rhine, when all I had ahead of me was chemo, tests and hospice beds. Oh, screw that. Damn him. A bullet for Hershey here and now, a second one for me. Now that's what I call justice, kids. I'll be the anti-hero. Inside the whirlwind of my skull, I counted down to 0. Judge, jury, executioner, I was guilty. We agreed. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Felt no doubts. Crispin Hershey, eyes clenched shut, framed by his office window, a twilight view of snowy woods, my own reflection and a gun. At 4, however, what the falling snow was slowing down, not thinning out, it was slowing down. At 3, damn me, the snowflake stopped, or very nearly almost stopped. As did Hershey's quivering face. Hallucination evoked by hormones in my brain? At 2, a figure came, still indistinct, a blur at the edge. of my vision. Into focus it bloomed, a woman as old as old, a woolen coat, snow-spattered, a moleskin hat with ear flaps. No ghost, I knew, and yet had Hershey looked, I doubted he'd have seen her. Her wrinkled hand reached out and rested on my wrist, warm as pockets, light as a papier-mâché bird. Her gaze was clear and eloquent. Oh, don't do this. No, this isn't right. You know this isn't you. The Dubliners, as in James Joyce, swivel on epiphanies, and this was one such narrative. See, all the toxic bile I'd felt for Hershey was punctured now and syringed off. I hadn't felt so calm in years. Not just since Columbia, I mean ever. The old woman led me out. I didn't even glance behind at Hershey, sitting there, still waiting for the bullet. In the corridor, a cleaner swept the floor in incremental actions. We passed across her line of sight. My .38 was in my hand, and yet she didn't notice. Same moment, same story moments later. Downstairs in reception, a dozen kids stood still as waxworks. I can't avoid the simile. Waxworks moving in slow time if you watched for long enough. One girl was flinging back her hair as if a model in an ad for L'Oreal shampoo. Golden filaments floated, swayed like sea anemones. Her friend sucked coffee from a cup, its steam uncoiled and hurriedly. This jock looked quite ridiculous. A gargoyle face, his head tipped back, and then a sneeze. 10 seconds from the to choo. The nebula of snot he blasted drifted pollen-like away. Nice. On one kid's sleeve I brushed my thumb, just as real as you and me according to my nerves and brain, yet we passed by invisibly, my quiet guide and I. What gives? So strange it was, this interlude between two scenes. All I could do was let myself be led, much as we do in dreams. Don't worry, she said, on the steps outside in the snow that took an age to fall. My sanity was still intact. I wasn't dead or dreaming. American, her accent, her diction crisp, her volume low, as if she hadn't raised a voice for 50 years or more. I live at slower speeds than you, 1/12 to be precise. That's why they seem to move so slow, why we run rings around them. She'd saved me up in Hershey's room from my collapse of judgment. True, I had been poorly used, but I wasn't a killer. She'd brought me time to think again, to think from fresh perspectives. Her task complete, she'd return to her cabin in the hills. I could remain, and with her gone, time would revert. I'd then be free to come or go, or climb the stairs to Hershey's room and finish what I'd just begun, if, after all, I wanted blood. Or I could choose to follow her. I had no money, cards or friends, no ticket back to Manchester. Yeah, I'll come with you, I answered, if that's okay. She said, okay, but first I'll need to kindly dump that gun. I felt relief. I dropped it in a wheelie bin. She said, good, and led me up an icy path and past a campus cemetery where headstones rose up from the snow between the mammoth, well-fed pines. We crossed a road, we passed a bus. Its passengers were caught in time like giant flies in gelatine. A startled fox fled our approach at a glacial, vulpine speed. A little bridge, a sluggish creek, a turning up a forest track. Snowflakes sank like sediment upon the seabed of the night. How long, how far we hiked uphill along the track between two trees, couldn't say. We didn't speak. The silence was eternal. The cabin stood upon a rock. I guessed by day the view was great, but all I saw was night and branches, mid-air snow and snow-marooned and icicles from eaves. The old woman turned the key. The door swung in. Inside there was a stove for heat, a lantern lit, a coffee pot, 2 narrow beds, and not much more. Now, had I been a younger me, I would have fired off questions now of who and what and how and why, but Bogota had taught me patience. Quietly, I nursed my mug. My host prepared some veggie broth and served it up with nutty bread and walnut oil, and sweet God, it tasted good. In centuries gone by, in countries that no longer are, the names by which her tribe was known were time gypsies. In modern times, my mentor said, we use meanderers instead. Meanderers live longer than you mayfly mortals. Take 70 years and 10, then multiply by 12 again. Come on, Einstein, you do the math. Longevity of these extremes kicks up problems that the mayflies cannot get inside. Who will love us? Who will care? Not these unliving, these unseeing mannequins who not believe we're even there. Meanderers' lives are solitary ones. As mortals age, the big game over flashes ever brighter. The value of the day increases. The ending of meanderers, by contrast, stays remote and dim, and year by year, for us, she said, a terminal ennui creeps in. The solution, I and many find, lies in that old injunction. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. Well, that's our code, she said, our key, our function, our cure all for futility. Food for the hungry, drugs for the sick, a shove for the drunk from the path of the truck, a slap for the sleeper before the smoke from the fire downstairs kills, or just showing up for a damaged man about to pull a trigger needlessly. Our acts are credited to chance, to fate, to prayers. Oh, who cares? It's outcomes, not their origins, that count. Well, I listened to her every word, and I believed them, every one. No other explanation seemed any less absurd. We listened to the kettle's wheeze, the muffled drumming in our ears. Voices echoed from the past, or not yet happened years. I asked, yeah, but why me? She opened up the stove, heat bled out. She fed the fire a log. Her face was shade and copper gold. 80 calendar years I've lived, she said, which felt like 7 centuries instead. My river flowed and changed its course and carved the land and reached the sea. So all things end, including me. I'm looking for a candidate to pass my gift on to. And for a while now, Richard, I've had my eye on you. I digested this or tried my best. Well, I'm honoured, I told her, but you must be crazy. I mean, that very day I nearly shot a man. What sort of guardian angel would I make? The sort who knows pain, who understands despair, she said. Not the useful sort. And honestly, compared to me, my friend, compared to what I did, you're a Boy Scout, a goddamn saint. I told her I had cancer. Not only did she know, my illness made her trust in me. You take an 18 months prognosis, she said, multiply by 12 and add to what remains. Come on, Einstein, you do the math. I awoke alone in the mountain cabin. Daylight lined the shutters. I opened up and drowned my lungs in pure, cold winter mountain air. The sky was blue, symphonic blue. My retinas sang and ached. Snow-heaped woods ran miles and miles and miles and miles to the Hudson River and on and up to the Catskills. Beautiful. I stayed in a cabin for my first slow day, equivalent to 12 of yours. Yet the weak, fat sun crossed the sky just once. The following dawn I started my journey on the Meanderer's Way. Truth be told, I never stopped. It led to camps and favelas, hospitals and mosques, food banks, slums, high-rises, wastelands, Shelters, war zones, squats. Prisons are my specialty. I know incarceration. I ministered to anyone and all, deeds both small and not so small. Whatever seemed to be of use in every situation. Evil is rare, but ethics are grey, and people build their private hells. Often as not, my role was just release their better, wiser selves. Not once have I been thanked by name, nor praised for never seeking thanks. My life was solitary for sure, a fact my predecessor voiced. Yet, now and then I've made mistakes, and yet I've proved a decent choice. Well, I hope that's the case at least. Which brings me to the matter in hand. Why would you alone, be reading these 5 paragraphs? It wasn't chance that brought you here. It isn't chance you're reading this. No more than it was chance that led an old woman once to Crispin Hirsch's office. My 18 months have spun into a meanderous score of years, you see. I've no complaints, but now it's late, and all things end, including me. You see yourself as a hopeless cause. I see a strong Samaritan. You know I have a gift, my friend. You know it needs a home. My search, no doubt, is overdue. Truth is, I've had my eye on you.
Interlude of a couple of minutes if people want to refill their glasses, and then we'll start in with
great
questions.
idea. I'm on the coast now.
Right, thank you very much everyone, and thank you again to David and Paul for those wonderful readings. We now have some time for questions. So does anybody want us to start us off? Any questions or Paul?
You get 7 years good luck if you're the first person. 7 years. Hey!
The question I asked Paul just now privately. Do you and Pierre buy your shoes from the same shop?
You know, every time I buy a pair of shoes, it seems to happen. So I think it's a kind of multiverse thing, I suppose.
You buy it in one shop, and the very same moment in the next door universe, Monsieur Jordan makes the same shoe wear decision.
It's not at all the same thing, but I will just say, when you talked about Mitchell's in the cave at home working and David's here, when I started doing this kind of work, it started as an intervention into the geologic turn in the humanities and environmental humanities discourse, and I'm just not interested in writing that discourse, but I'm interested in stones and time and all of that. So just one day the phrase came to me when I was out in the garden, the Perturbation of Pierre Jardin. And it's just there's something about that. It's easy, but it also is it's a space that you can work in. Literally, it's a space to work in physically, but it lets the pleasure open up. So I will follow him to the ends of the earth, every shoe store he goes to.
Ringo Starr used to refer to the Beatles as them. Isn't that cool? That's sort of what I'm thinking about with sort of me when David and Mitchell, and perhaps something the same thing is applicable here, but Ringo's looking back, whereas you're looking forwards. Hello, 6 years. 6 years, good luck.
Boy, does that get
It's just going to get lower and lower as people ask more questions. What happens when it goes into negative numbers?
Did you not see the labyrinth? It starts back up again.
You're the
Cloud
first.
Atlas, I mean, come on.
After about 15 years of using that method to encourage people to ask questions and to break the ice, you are the first person in decade to ask that question. Trust an academic.
No, I'll never trust an academic. It's a question about collaboration, actually, because I think it's safe to say, I didn't go to all the panels, but that every paper today is given by a single person. And there's a kind of lone scholar model in the arts humanities that's beginning to be broken, I think, but is still looked on with suspicion. You know, we don't have a sociological or science model of co-authorship. And you know, you put two names on it. Who wrote which bit? And so it's kind of and what was so lovely about that was the creative collaboration in both the verbal and the body language and the pictorial. And I'm just kind of interested, like David, you've collaborated with Kai and Sunny, and you know, tonight with Paul, and what's different about creating as not just an individual, but as a pair or a threesome or more?
Do you want to go first, Paul? You've done a bit of collaboration in your time?
I mean, just briefly, because I do want to hear this side of it. But this year I started working with an artist, Richard Turner, and we made 2 different slow time zones at school. He's a visual artist, and that one banner that I showed with the stack of messages is one of 9 pieces, and if anybody wants to see, it's all, I have these booklets because we're showing them in Amsterdam next week. Collaboration takes the stress off. I mean, for me, that's been my experience, is when you have 2 of you standing there looking at something, it's completely different. If I'm alone thinking about it and I agonize, I mean, the process for this was different. You know, I agonized over every single word, and the collaborative part is partially serendipity. So this happened.
It's 99% serendipity, surely. I mean, we did a prototype of this
a year ago. Yeah, please.
A year ago, and after each stage we just look at each other more and more. What? But it's about a garden. What? It's about slowing time. What? It was really unplanned. I had a few bits and pieces that I wanted to give a road test to. I had no idea what Paul was going to do. It took me an embarrassingly long time to twig that Monsieur Jardin has a unique, singular relationship to really for quite a while. I mean, yeah, it's a sky, but wow, French name, well, you know, it's a state, it should be called anything there. But it just sort of fell into place like a supercomputer playing Tetris, just with all the right little blocks in all the right places, and so we both wanted to do it again, just to get the pleasure from that.
And it was, I started with the same things and did new things, just because I taught the bone clocks. I sent students to walk the labyrinth and think about the labyrinthine narrative. I mean, just experimenting, and that's part of the collaboration. But what I really want to say is, this is the open spirit that you need to have someone to collaborate with. And, you know, out of the blue, David came to our Time Society conference in Edinburgh last summer, and he had 3 short pieces to read, and I said, do you want to do a modular reading? And he said, yes, sight unseen. So just in terms of collaboration, you know, you can imagine my elation that this would happen, and that, but it really, like, your ethos in writing is the same way. It's like you're open, you will just try things and go for it, and include whoever wants to come in the conversation. Like, that is collaboration sounds good, but I've lost a friend over trying to collaborate. Like, it really is a delicate thing. So I really wanted to mark that. Like, you've just been completely receptive. I proposed the thing of the letter. I had this letter. I was trying to figure out how is the Cretan labyrinth thing going to get in this narrative? All the numbers and all that stuff. So I sent him a letter from horology and asked him if you wanted to, do you want to draw or do you want to read? You know, would you do either? And instead he completely rewrote it and you know, he made it his own. So that's just it's the fun, right? But you have to
the chemistry.
Let go and trust.
Or it's awful.
It can be done.
I don't really have much to add, except you think you work on your own just by being a novelist. You know, years, 4 years sometimes, on a book, going wrong, starting up again, going wrong again, starting to wonder if you're a one-hit wonder who just got lucky, starting to think, well, if I wasn't doing this kind of at the supermarket, give me a job or whatever. Probably not at this point. The chance to collaborate with anyone where the chemistry is right it's a very rare joy. I love my job and I don't do anything else, but the fact is novelists don't have colleagues because we're novelists. You don't co-write novels, you just don't. It can't work. It is a one-person activity. So I get the joy from it, I get the pleasure. And thank you for the kind things you said about moving to Stanford, but to not be open to the other person, to not, it's not I go halfway. I want to go as close to the other person as I possibly can. And if the other person wants to come as close to what I do as he or she possibly can, that's the dream scenario really. To not do that is to waste the opportunity. It's to waste the opportunity to learn. Learning's good. It doesn't need a reason. It's there. It's one of the best reasons of being alive. But there's also sort of a craftier, professional reason as well. Novelists slowly die by repeating themselves. And my job is to not slowly expire over the next 15, 20 years professionally by writing variations and permutations of Cloud Atlas, for example, over and over again. And how do I do this? It's by sort of a middle-aged equivalent of what you can do when you're in your 20s and have no responsibilities to put everything in the backpack and off you go. I can't do that anymore. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, but it just doesn't work like that. But I can do it via you, via collaborators. I can't sort of take 8 months off and go to other continents and still come back and expect to have a marriage intact. But I can go away for a few days and sort of cross continents of knowledge and ideas and other ways of seeing things, and come back with my reservoir of raw materials from which I can draw and try to. My ideal is for all of my novels to theoretically be by individual people who are not me. That's what I'd love, for there to be no such thing as a David Mitchell style. Stylometrics experts might have something to say about this, but that sort of proves the point. That's what I want to fight. I want those different coloured bars that Martin showed us this morning to be really different for each book. And you are how I do it. And doing this with Paul is how I achieve that, or how I try to. It's my best shot in a way. I know I'd succeed. You can't ultimately escape from kind of the lexical, neural straitjacket of how you use language and create narratives. But you can damn well try. And by doing that, you can partly succeed. And partly succeed beats not succeeding and just having another book by me that's just the same as the last one. It was a lot like the one before. We all know authors who have done that, and it's a shame. And I don't want to do it. Long answer, rambly thing, it's the why.
So actually that's kind of a follow-up to that. I was at an event recently with Jonathan Safran Foer where he talked about how he remembers writing Everything is Illuminated, but he sort of remembers that he was the guy who did it, but he kind of doesn't really remember that guy, and he doesn't think he could write a book like that anymore. And I'm just wondering, you've talked about not being the same person, being husband, being father, changing over the years. Do you still feel connected to your older books, as in the same way as you were when you wrote them, or do you feel somewhere between that and the way Jonathan Foer feels?
Yeah, it's, I would pretty much agree with what he said, and perhaps use those same words. I know I did Cloud Atlas, and I'm grateful to it, and it paid for the house, and kind of gave me 15 years of potential flops, and my publisher would still publish me. That's great. I mean, the more recent ones haven't flopped, but they could have done. I'd still be kind of okay-ish. But it's a little bit painful to hear or see things being read from that, because I start editing it with the user of language that I am now, which, thank heavens, I've moved on from there. You know, I don't use metaphors as much, I think, or if I do, they're better. I've come across thoughts that, you know, maybe isn't quite the same as perhaps. It looks a bit different on the eye. There are just some sentences where you know you should use a maybe, and now I know where I should use a perhaps. That sort of sensitivity of just using the right word for this sentence, it wasn't as finely tuned then as it was as it is now. I mean, I had other things then. I had a sort of a recklessness, a kind of six narratives, but now bring them back together. See what that looks like. I'm not sure if I'd be that up.
If I remember correctly, reading was that there were originally 9.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
The other 3.
Actually, well, earlier today I did have one of those moments where someone said a theory about why the Somni section had been set in Korea. I did kind of have an answer that wasn't quite the person, that wasn't quite the guess. It was something I'd gone to Korea to research, one of those 3 stories that never quite made it. But I've done, say, 3 weeks worth of travelling around Korea and taking notes, and I damn well wasn't going to as it happens, sort of East Asia, it does sort of make sense that if there's a catastrophe in Western Europe environmentally or whatever, then East Asia would still kind of be okay then. So the paper, the idea that from the person who gave the paper wasn't long either. However, that was my main reason. I'm just tight. I'm just a miser. I'm going with this. So that was one of them. There was an interesting story just about a young hip hop artist in Korea who kind of went on the run on a false drugs charge from the police who wanted to make an example of how the authority stamped down on this dangerous new druggy art form, and that really captured my imagination, so I really wanted to use that. But then, for all the talented young musicians I've already written, there's one in Ghost Written, I think there's another one somewhere in, there is in Number 9 Dream, Frobisher. What is it with all these stuff? So I kind of was it's an early example of an idea there was nothing wrong with, but I realised I was repeating myself. So that was why kind of the 9 became 6. Plus, it would have gone up to 800, 900 pages. And sometimes you can get away with that, but very rarely. You'd better be damn good if you're going up to if you're going up to 800 pages, which is why kind of generally the best, longest novels are up to about 600. There's a few exceptions, of course, we all know, but not many. Final thing, the marketplace has an influence on art, always has done, and there's the idea that artists shouldn't really confess to this, but why not? About a third of my income comes from translations. Translators are paid by the page, and small overseas or non-English publishers. My Lithuanian publisher kind of couldn't afford to pay a translator for a really long book. So these things I would not write a long book if I was confident enough it wouldn't kind of enter the post 650 page blues. I would write it, but it's not a consideration either. Answer your question. Who's after 5 years? Maybe one for Paul.
Hello. What do you do with the drafts that don't make it into things? Do you store them or do you burn them?
These days, of course, they're not printed out. So I've got a file on my computer called the useful bin, and everything that it's great to have it because I don't have to say goodbye to anything. I just put it into the useful bin, and it makes it much easier to prune and to edit and to chop, because I never want to. I always go back and get it, but I never do. Once it's in there, I forget it. I pretty much forget it exists. I've got some sort of half-finished stories in another file. It's called half-finished stories. I'll go back to those. At some point, I should give some short pieces at home. One of the
Give St Andrew's recollection at some point.
But I want to rewrite. I rewrite these short pieces every time I do them, pretty much. So yeah, they're just on hard drives, and then I put them onto a memory stick when I change computer. So they're around, but it's like possessions and objects and books and DVDs that you've owned for years and haven't got around to yet. You don't throw them away because you think, oh, I'll get back to that one day, but you don't anticipate the future supply of new stuff that will stop you getting back to the old stuff. And it's a bit like that with semi-finished or discarded sections. I think it's really lost. I mean, it can get recycled into future new scenarios as well, like the Korean notes did. And even if you don't, it's somehow there. It's somehow there. I'm talking too much.
To coin a paraphrase, a half-finished or an unfinished story. It's like an unfinished love affair. Boy, you are cold-hearted. Leaving all those broken hearts festering in some stick or file or hard drive.
Yeah, they must hate me.
How did you like San Francisco, and how much input did you have on Sense8?
Right, yeah, well, I love San Francisco. Not liking San Francisco is like not liking ice cream. I know some people do, but I really don't quite get it. Good quality ice cream, of course. And so input on Sense8. Nothing on season 1 because Lana hadn't asked me that yet. Season 2, I probably wrote about it. Me and Alexander Hayman both. We would have contributed about 5 or 6 scenes each to every episode. So and there's about 50, 60 scenes per episode. And we were there discussing the story arc for season 2 at the beginning, and we also copy edited, proofread every episode and provided notes. Is what we thought. Sometimes Lana incorporated our ideas, and she didn't. So kind of that's the nature of a consultant. No season 3. It's had the plug pulled on it by Netflix. It's just announced about 2 days ago. It's just so expensive to make. It did well, but I think to justify the money they spent on it, it needed Stranger Things size viewing figures, and I mean they keep the viewing figures secret, so no one will ever know. But shame. However, I'm going to Chicago. So Plan A was to spend a few weeks this summer working on season 3. Plan B was to kind of inoculate ourselves against that disappointment. Was the 3 of us will start something brand new. We'll just see what happens, but we'll kind of arrive with. This partly goes back to Martin's question just now. Sort of things get recycled. I've got ideas that could work for that. I've been doing if I start to talk about what we've been doing for the last year, it'll be a 15-minute conversation maybe. But I've done something that would have lots of potential for either a feature or for like an EP-sized series, maybe 3-4 episodes. So the 3 of us will convene, and the aim is to write something that we will all look at and say, no way could I have done that on my own without the other 2. More collaboration. It's just sort of the joy of working on I mean, I don't want to be a screenwriter. I've found my form 15, 17 years ago, and I love being a novelist. However, a holiday, which is going to be a little bit of a long holiday, I must admit, that's an ancient film, in screenwriting land, is another sort of shot in the arm of new ways of looking at narrative. It's more inoculation against repeating myself. There's the haiku-like density of a well-written screenplay is a joy to behold. There's all that empty space on a screen page, on a screenplay page. You think, wow, I better take long to knock off one of those. It's the space that takes the time. It's all the things that are in there but are not written. I have deep respect for screenwriters. They're at least as high up the food chain as novelists, I think. They do amazing things with so few words. So just learn a bit of that. Think in slightly new ways about where a scene starts and where it stops. I need to get started on my next novel to beat the World Cup deadline. But this kind of isn't wasted either. It'll make my next novel stylistically further away from Slade House and Bone Clocks, which kind of are of a piece in a sense. Cut from the same cloth anyway. So, sorry, I'm just talking.
That's good. Can I ask one thing that I've asked you before, but what you just said makes me want to ask it again, which is reading. So the Bone Clocks arrive, and it's a binge read. It's season 7, David Mitchell, binge read. And the part of the fun is section 1 ends. What are you going to find when you turn the page? And honestly, I wish that I could put it away for a week and have to watch the next episode next week or a month. It feels, everything about the parts made of the wholes made of parts that are semi-autonomous parts. Everything about that feels so much like the great dramatic series pleasure of not knowing. And you could do the 3-decker Victorian novel length. You could. Is it really the publishing of the novel as an object that prevents any thought of serial publication? Your writing is just like, put out the first Holly chapter, and what's the next chapter going to be? And it feels so right that you would consider serial publication and break with it. And you'd be like totally Radiohead, you know, like you're so established and cool that you could be the one to do this new thing, that would be a novelist that, no, like, have you ever had any conversation or thought of this, or is it really like, I'm a novelist, I write novels, and I don't think about releasing it that way, or?
I've never really had a conversation with my publishers, with my editor, who would be the first person to talk to about this. It's really, they do it like this in Japan. Big long novels get published as sort of the upper part, the middle part, the lower part. That's how Murakami does it in Japan.
Really?
Yeah. And you get 3 times the money because it's new release. Also, however, in Japan, books cost, oddly for historic pieces, it costs a bit less, so you do have to publish more to pay the mortgage. Or you have to publish more often. The advantages would be that sort of the British publishing kind of market there, it's not quite geared up for that. It's and now for the new one. You haven't heard from them for 3 years, but
yeah.
Here it is. If I was just sort of putting something out comic book style every 6 to 9 or 12 months, I suppose you're completely dependent upon a loyal readership to buy it. Because the media would be tired of interviewing you. But, you know, sort of things do change, things are changing all the time. We'll remember sort of, well, around the time of the last conference here, the death of the book was imminent. Then suddenly it wasn't.
Now it's the author. Bad news.
So yeah, maybe someone should try this and just see what happens. Like Radiohead, putting out in rainbows for free.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not the right analogy. I don't have a good analogy, but you know, being in a position to try something.
Neil Gaiman's in that position. On the other hand, so much money would be lost if the experiment went wrong that they probably wouldn't let him. I don't know, maybe perhaps someone to my size would be the right person to try. It's a thought, but I also just love. We talked about Lego. That's nice and it works in terms of construction. However, my favourite analogy for a novel is the cabinet of curiosities.
Absolutely.
What's in it?
Absolutely.
What's in these compartments? Whoa, what are you doing in the same cabinet as you? Well, hang on, there's a kind of a logic there. Okay, there's more logic if I go on to the next bit. You wouldn't get that if it's serialised. So, big Narnian wardrobe, deep-sized cabinet of curiosities is sort of, it's a pretty nice form. I like reading things like that. I like that book by Michel Faber, the Book of Strange New Things. It's just so huge, and you sort of don't just read it, you live in it for a while. It's like a friend's apartment in London, and they've gone off for a few weeks, and says, here's the key. And that's what these big novels are like. And I do rather like doing them. Yeah.
I think you were talking about as well with Sensei, which I think we should totally start a campaign to bring back, like Twin Peaks. It's already on. Okay, it's already on. Good. Hopefully we'll get it back. But, I'm currently also really enjoying the screen adaptation of Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if anybody's been following it. And that's currently bringing Margaret Atwood's fictional world to life. Are we likely to see any of your fictional world that already exists, or perhaps that will exist on the screen anytime soon?
Probably Slade House is closest, I'm going to guess. It's all, all the stories you've heard about the unreliability of the film world are not only true, they're understated. So it just takes one executive to change his mind. Well, as with Netflix, it just takes, we did the Suns and no, it's off. That's it. So this is why they take. This is why they almost all take ages to appear. It's this multi-dimensional Rubik's cube, and only when everything is lined up at the right time, right people, right money, right backers, right cast, right producers, wind blowing in the right direction in Greenland. Only then will it happen. Take what I say with a whole skip of salt, but I'd say Slade House will be closest, and a film version of The Reason I Jump, actually, which would be really interesting. It will be a weird beastie, but that's in the decent shout at the moment. Everything else is pretty much optioned, but it's been optioned for years and nothing really happens. Bone clocks. Don't know when the option that expires. The only way to preserve your sanity is to operate on a need-to-know basis. So I just ask my agent, when there's something really happening, let me know. But if you start worrying about who's saying what to who in which meetings about what, you just become a full-time development hell warrior, and I won't get any work done.
There's the Vorman problem, the short film adaptation of the section from None of
The Vorman problem, yeah.
So it's not just had Atlas that's been
It's true.
And that's a wonderful film.
It's really good,
It's really
isn't it?
good. And so for instance, people just don't seem to, who's seen it? Yeah, because lots of people don't seem to know it. It's a wonderful. It's not YouTube.
It's not actually.
You can buy the DVD online.
You can, okay.
Yeah. So that little bit.
That really gave Number 9 Dreams prospects a shot in the arm for a while. A fairly hot British producer was attached to the project for a while, but then a year or two goes by. Thing is, everyone takes on more work than they can possibly do because so much will fail, because so many people have taken on small things and they can so it just takes another competing project to get greenlit, and then the producer or the director who was attached to your thing goes away and does that for 10 months, and it's in limbo, or it needs a producer, director. Not for the faint-hearted, a Korean film, and this is why. I've sort of been involved for 18 months or so. I've been doing things. I've been working on okay. Yeah, it's sort of cool if you don't tweet it. That's okay. So. So there's this, and one of the bits and pieces too, but I've really taken enough of your time. It's nice to share it with you though, and who knows, if St Andrews and Rose will have us back, then maybe next time around these books will exist. They'll be in the past, there won't be the papers on them. There was a paper last time on David Mitchell in Japan, just before, well, and that was when I was working on Jacob de Zoet, or it was in, and I was thinking, and in fact, I'm saying to the person who gave the paper, hang on in there. There's not that much now, but in 6 months' time, you're going to have a lot of news. But yeah, if we kind of keep this between ourselves a little bit, that would be great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. I think, unless there's any more questions, I think, yes.
It's not a question.
Go for it.
We thank you at dinner. But rock lovers, it's a gift-giving culture. And seriously, you and the team and everybody did this so beautifully. So I brought you a little stone, which is a beautiful blue calcite turtle from California, which is a slow time animal. And it's so that you and David may have more years of joy and happiness in life. And you can mark your office.
That is fantastic.
That's
we'll go on a notice board, and I'm quite sure he's doing exams at the moment and gets a bit flustered, so this will do a lot of good.
All right, you got it.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And can we please give Paul and David a huge round of applause to say thank you so much.
Couldn't give people a nicer.
Thank you so much for that. So the day is now obviously drawing to a close, but please continue sharing your thoughts and ideas and photos online. I'm also going to set up a group email so that we can stay in touch and share any academic publications or any news, any calls for papers on David Mitchell's work. So please do keep in touch with connections that you've made today and also with us as well. A few thank yous now. No academic conference would be complete without a long list of thank yous. I'll try and keep it short. Thank you so much to the wonderful conference team that have helped so brilliantly today. Peter, David, Hannah, Tiana, Aideen and Adam, whose thumbs must be raw from being on. I've got some small tokens later to say thank you. And I'd also like to thank the School of English here at the University of St Andrews, the Student Project Fund, and Grad Skills and Special Collections for their generous support of the conference. So if we could just give a... and Adam, if I can ask your final duties of the evening, there's a couple of bags just behind you there. Perfect. So I'd just like to say thank you so much again to our keynote speaker, Dr. Sarah Dillon, for doing such a fantastic job earlier and for coming back. Just checking it's the right one. Thank you so much for coming back again. So thank you also to the session chairs who very generously didn't mind being coerced into shepherding everyone today. They've done such a fantastic job, so thank you so much again for that. I'd also like to say thank you to the speakers. I can't believe that we actually got 20 speakers in a one-day conference. Who does that? We did that. So well done. To all of you for coming. You've made today what it is. It really is you, and you have done such a fantastic job. It's been such a delight for me to meet all of you after months of email exchanges and reading through all your abstracts and everything else. It has been an absolute joy, so thank you so much. For anyone who would like to continue the conversation, or in fact who is so jet lagged that you're only now just coming to life, we'll be heading out to Forgan's in town later for drinks. There's a ceilidh that's starting about 10:30 if anybody would like the traditional Scottish experience. It's free ceilidh on Saturday. So yeah, if anybody would like to come and join us after finishing off the rest of our wine, you're very welcome to. And the last thank you of the night is reserved to someone who this day literally would not have been possible. David, thank you. Thank you for being gracious enough to let us nitpick it in your presence. So please can you all join me in saying a final thank you tonight, a huge thank you to the person whose imagination has brought us all together today, David Mitchell. Good night, everyone.